You said something about patterns. You can't talk about patterns if the officer's past is not allowed in court. Every time you've seen one of these police shootings or something happen, you'll hear about what that person did 20 years ago.
There were 17 offenses that George Floyd went
never
through.
Hear anything about what that cop did.
Yeah.
And that's kind of bullshit. Because what if, to George Floyd's deal, he was arrested for drugs 10 years ago. That had shit to do with what happened today.
Yeah.
But you want to bring it up in court, you want to bring it up in the media, but you can't bring up anything in the past of the cop that says, well, he beat up a black guy 6 weeks ago, or he beat up a white guy 6 weeks ago.
Right.
You can't bring any of that shit up.
I think it's comparing apples to oranges. So a criminal conviction is a lot different than a personnel issue within the police department. I get what you're saying. I do. But like I said, it's apples to oranges. If you went on trial, would you want them to go to your work and bring up all your personnel issues at your work? The officer, you're talking about a conviction versus an administrative issue within the department. And they do come in. They do come in sometimes. It really depends upon, there's a lot of minutia in the law. There's a lot of interpretation. That's how you're able to appeal so many things.
That's what drives me crazy, batshit crazy, is what that the law part, because there's the perception, there's common sense, there's perception, there's respect, and all these things. But when shit hits the fan and somebody messed up and somebody did something wrong, then we start going, well, technically, and you start dissecting it to the point where you forgot why we're even here.
Right.
And that's the part that frustrates me. Not that it's not necessary, because it is probably necessary to, let's cross-examine, let's look at it from this side and that side. But there's times where I think that is abused, and it's used to deceive. It's like, oh, look at that shiny object, and they go down this road, and the next thing you know, the jurors or whoever's making the decision is like, yeah.
So let me ask you this question.
That was my rant.
I don't disagree with you, but let me ask you this question. So we get frustrated when we see like this last case that just came on, and they're trying to go down all these rabbit holes to get him off, and they're trying to keep his personnel issues out.
My point is they shouldn't basically besmirch the name of the person who is here, because if he raped 3 babies and killed 20 people, that has nothing to do with what happened today.
Yeah. So where I was going with what I was saying is, we get very upset about that, about some of the things you said, of all the technicalities and the rabbit trails that you can go down. And it's very easy to do when you're very emotional about that type of stuff. But if you were that man, wouldn't you want every possible opportunity to defend yourself? Right, wrong, or indifferent?
You mean if I knew what I did was so wrong and I wish I could take it back, but I'm now under this, I'm putting up the front, and I'm going, man, my lawyers are telling me don't say anything, we're going to get you off. Do you mean that?
Well, I don't think his lawyers ever said, don't worry, we're going to get you off.
Well,
But I think what they did say is, we're going to put up every defense possible to make... That dude was going to get convicted.
I wish he would have said, holy crap, guys, what? I confess.
They even tried to say the carbon monoxide from the exhaust pipe that he was laying in front of.
I have a clip that I'm not playing that talks about that.
Kind of crap.
Right. But my thing is, would you have been as upset if it were you facing life in prison? Would you not want your defense team to take every possible step to at least defend you in some way where you might see the light of day again, because the guy was going to get convicted.
I'm confused. Are you saying that if I was Derek Chauvin, would I have wanted him to pull up all of George Floyd's convictions and stuff? Is that what you're referencing?
No, what I'm asking is, would you not want your defense team to do whatever they could to defend you? That is the point of a defense team.
Dragging George Floyd's past through the mud.
If George Floyd or whoever this case is we're talking about, you're now, would you not want your defense attorney?
Let's just say I'm the guy who put the knee on George Floyd. I'm Derek right now, and I at some point, if I have no conscience, I would go, I didn't do nothing wrong. Wasn't me. You know, if I wanted to play that game and I believed it, then yeah, okay. But if you go, crap, I'm in trouble.
You still want a good defense, even though you're in trouble and you know you did wrong.
Yeah.
You still want a good defense.
Yeah.
I mean, you know you're going to go to jail, but you'd rather go for 20 years, not 40 years.
Yeah.
But what I want...
But the point I'm making has nothing to do with what I want my defense team to do.
Right.
I'm saying it should not be legal for them to do that.
Well,
because it has no bearing on what happened on that day.
Yeah.
It had no bearing. They actually had people say, well, it's not like he was a good guy. We didn't lose anything.
Yeah.
You had people say that.
This puts me in an awkward situation.
Sorry.
No.
I figured that might happen today.
No. I don't mind being in awkward situations. I don't mind talking them out. So my point in saying all this is not to defend that man.
Right.
Yeah.
I understand.
I'm talking about the system.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's my problem with the system.
Part of his defense was that I didn't do it. He had a fentanyl overdose, and I can prove that that's what did it because it happened before. And
but that doesn't prove it, though.
I know, but that was his defense.
Yeah.
Was that it was the drugs, not his knee on the neck, and he even has a history of using
with you.
fentanyl.
I see it.
So,
at least, hey, I'm going to try to defend.
Right.
That there's a possibility that just my neck wasn't the reason that he died.
But on the flip side, there was an administrative record of George Floyd putting his knee on the neck of a child a couple years before that.
You're talking about Derek.
Yeah,
Derek,
I'm sorry. What did I say?
George. George didn't put a knee on no kid's neck.
My bad.
Okay.
There was an administrative record of Derek Chauvin doing that they wouldn't allow to be presented in court. And that's actually directly related to show that he has done this before.
Right.
But they allow for one and not the other. That's what I'm saying. If you're not going to allow for one, then you shouldn't be allowed on the other side.
Is that a judge preference of the judge?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
the judge is one who told
that
me
has nothing to do with law enforcement or even really the prosecutor. That's a judge's call on what they're going to let in and all that. But I don't fault his defense team for putting up a defense. That's what defense lawyers do.
I see that side.
That's what I'm saying. I have no problem with his I'm saying that it shouldn't be allowed.
But if you're Derek, if I'm Derek now again. You can hate me, but if my lawyer comes to me and goes, look, what we're going to talk about George Floyd's past to try to get the attention off of you, and we're gonna drag him through the mud. Are you cool with that? I mean, and
most times they're not going to ask you that question.
No, they're not. But
you don't get to tell your defense attorney what the strategy is.
You're not paying for him, are you?
Yeah.
It's not like I'm paying you. No, I'm represented, right? Is he But
you just sit back and let him say what
how
he's
do you stop the dragging through the mud? Does Derek have the choice to say, look, don't make this about him?
I mean, he can tell his attorney that, but his attorney does his job the way he does his job.
All right,
you don't get in an Uber and tell the Uber driver how to drive.
Yeah.
Here's the deal, and we talked about creating opportunities where he could get a new trial or something could be overturned. If his defense attorney does not vigorously defend him and take every opportunity to defend him, they'll claim incompetent counsel, and we'll be right back at this.
That's true.
Yep.
Yeah. That's why I'm a video guy.
Hey.
So you guys remember the infamous, and I don't think it was too long ago, the military cop in the gas station, and good boy cop comes up there and sprays mace in the window. You remember hearing about this? Mm-hmm. All right. Can we watch this?
Sure. He's a cousin of Eric Garner.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he is.
Which one?
The guy who got choked out by the cop in New York.
Oh,
This lieutenant is.
okay.
Yeah.
Let's check it out.
I'm actively serving this country, and this is how you're gonna treat me? I didn't do anything. Whoa.
Video released by U.S. Army Lieutenant Kara Nazario's attorney shows the moment the soldier in uniform was pepper sprayed in the face with his hands raised after a traffic stop turned violent in Virginia last December.
Watch it.
Yeah, that's no fun.
Get out of the car!
I've been pepper
A
sprayed
suit
several times.
filed
It
by
hurts.
Nazario
Yeah,
in
me
early
too.
April in the U.S. District Court of Norfolk against Windsor policemen Joe Gutierrez and Daniel Crocker alleges violations to his constitutional rights and includes assault, illegal search, and illegal detention.
What are you, a specialist, Corporal? What are you?
I'm a lieutenant.
Lieutenant, get out of the car!
Nazario's attorney, Jonathan Arthur, said his client, who is black and Latino, was, quote, not resisting in any way, shape, or form.
The lieutenant sent me his cell phone footage first, and it was horrifying. But I kept hoping and thinking, that's only one angle. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe the dash cam footage or the body cam footage will show something different. And it didn't. It just got worse from there.
Talk to me about what's
Get on the
going on.
ground! Get on the ground now!
Nazario was driving his new SUV with a temporary paper tag displayed on the back window on December 5th
That's hard
when
to
he was
watch.
told to pull over in Windsor, a small Virginia town southeast of Richmond. When a police cruiser signaled for him to stop, the lawsuit said Nazario put on his blinkers, slowed down, and looked for a lighted place to stop, eventually stopping at a gas station less than 2 minutes later. The suit says an officer radioed to dispatch that a driver without a tag was eluding police and was considered a high-risk stop, and another officer responded to the scene.
I'm honestly afraid to get out.
Yeah, dude, you should be. Get out!
Nazario told police that he was afraid to get out of the vehicle. The suit says Nazario had his hands up, offered no resistance, but was pepper sprayed and violently knocked to the ground and detained. Ultimately, Nazario was released without charges.
I can't believe being treated like this.
I don't want to charge you. I will. It's my job. I don't want to.
Now look, I'm not. I even feel bad for showing all these because it's easy to find clips like this. But this is one that made press, and I was surprised because when I saw this, my wife and my daughter, I saw that clip, and so apparently made some attention.
Mm-hmm.
So anything?
So,
Yeah, because you said that you thought it was entertaining for both sides.
Look, it was supposed to be a felony stop.
I've seen the entire clip.
Okay.
This
This is a
is
clip.
like
Yeah, okay.
looking through a keyhole into a
Okay.
room
Well,
and
then
describing the
enlighten
room. So, I think both parties played a role in escalating this to an area that it didn't need to be.
Do explain.
I swallowed wrong. So,
That's what she said.
all right, Michael Scott.
I mean, you just put it right
Yeah,
up.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I opened myself up to that. So, here's what I know about this. I wasn't there.
I know that as well.
Let me preface that with I was not there. I only know what I see on the video, and I've seen the whole video.
Yeah.
Yep, the whole video is like 12 minutes or 15
Yeah.
minutes.
It's and there's a lot of screaming. Get out of the
Yep.
car, sir. Get out of the car,
What
sir.
could have
Get
the
out
guy
of the car.
done?
Sir. Get out of the car. But
Yeah.
here's the deal. I think it was.
Perfect storm.
You remember when we started this, and I said we've lost respect for each other.
Yep.
Yep.
And we don't make wise choices, and we don't communicate well.
Exactly.
If you're
It's a prime
watching this
example.
podcast, go watch the whole video, and that in a nutshell is an example of nobody on either side respecting each other and listening to each other.
But guess what got put all over the news?
Oh, I know.
I mean, I kind of,
yeah.
I
give me
kind
your-
of disagree with you.
All right, there we go.
If I'm in my car and you're aiming a gun at me and yelling and cussing at me, how much respect am I going to give you when you're giving me none?
That's what I said. It's a lack of respect on both sides. They weren't. The way they spoke to him was unnecessary. But so
but you said there's lack of respect on both sides.
Yes.
So what did the guy in the car do?
How did he disrespect them?
Okay.
By not getting out of the car when they told him to?
Yes. So
I'm scared you're going to shoot me. I wouldn't get out of the car either.
Well, they could just walk up and shoot you. I mean, literally, if they're going to shoot you, they could walk up and shoot you. The whole thing, it's like a slow train wreck that we're watching happen here, right? So they conducted what's called a felony traffic stop on the guy. Mm-hmm. Felony traffic stops are very common in law enforcement.
It's because he didn't pull over right away. He waited that 2 minutes to find out.
Because they didn't see a license plate on the back of the vehicle. They assumed it was stolen. It was in the back window, which was tinted, so they didn't see it initially. Which, when they stopped and got out of their vehicle, they should have seen the license plate in the window, but they didn't.
Okay. So here's the deal, and I'm going to say this from the point of being a police officer and realize that things happen in the heat of the moment, and you have to make split-second decisions that can then get dissected over and over and over again as people watch clips. So if you can imagine somebody's watching this that we're doing here, and we just suddenly...
I think we've got 4 viewers now.
4?
So, I mean, you're talking to like 4, maybe 5.
Where I'm going with this, if you can imagine somebody's watching this, and we suddenly just stop talking for 2 solid minutes, what would happen? They would turn it off, right? That's too long, right? So the police officer, I'm going to tell you as a police officer what I would think in this situation. It's late at night, whatever time it was. It's dark. I can't see into the car. I don't see a license plate. I've activated my lights. And he drove for 2 more minutes. Okay. We can all say that he drove to a well-lit area and all that, and I give him that. I give him that, or that he was concerned about stopping in an area. I give him that too. But I also have to give to the officer that generally when people drive for a long period of time without stopping, it's because they're hiding something. I have found that more cases than not. They're hiding a gun. They're hiding drugs.
The quicker they pull over, the more apt they are to, I need to comply with this. And I'm probably not hiding anything.
Right.
But the longer I go, I'm hiding stuff, shoving stuff down.
It's possible.
It's possible.
It's possible. And I give a little grace because I have been in that position. I have walked up to cars at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it didn't make a difference what race the person is sitting there.
Right.
Well, stopping somebody alone in the middle of the night is a scary situation.
Right.
Okay? And fear is a good thing. Fear is a survival mechanism that we have. But these are humans. And so in this case, one thing kind of escalated on another. So his behavior before the actual stopping heightened their awareness.
Yep.
Then their response to it probably wasn't the best. Screaming MFer and all this type of stuff.
Gun drawn.
Yeah.
I'm scared to get out. You need to be.
Yeah.
That's the moment where you wish that the guy in the car said, officer, the reason I drove longer than I would have liked to have pulled over sooner, but it was dark and I wanted to get into a lighted area.
That didn't matter.
You're not going to have that conversation there.
That doesn't matter.
That's not going to happen. They're wanting him to comply. He is saying he's afraid to comply. They need to do something at that point to attempt to take control in a positive manner, not just scream louder or curse more, but say, sir, if you'll just step out of the car, you're not going to get hurt. We just need you to step out for our safety. We don't know if you're armed, blah, blah, blah. Communicate with them at some point. We talked about this in some of the other clips.
Yeah.
If you'll just stop for a second, there are situations.
Consider the person's mindset and help diffuse that by explaining to them without just going,
get out of the car.
Right.
Right.
So I used to tell people that I would train, there are situations in law enforcement where you will have to make a split-second decision. Split second. But in all the other situations where you don't.
Exactly.
You know,
Slow
if that
down.
cop
Think it out and talk it out.
So that I'm talking about
Well,
that moment of time when they pulled in there. What should have happened?
He kept asking, what is this about?
Right.
And the response he kept getting was, get out of the car, and,
Right.
and getting cussed at.
This is the same.
Yeah,
What did
dude,
you
as I
stop
said.
me for?
Right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
It's
And-
always
and-
a
and-
failure to communicate.
Yep.
It almost
He
always
asked a
comes
logical
down
question.
to a failure to communicate.
what prevented
But-
that cop to answer that guy's question.
He's a dumbass.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can just pretty much
it's
sum that
poor
up.
training. It's
It was
poor
just poor
training.
training.
Somebody did not teach this guy how to talk to people.
He didn't figure he owed him an
We've
explanation.
lost the ability.
His children
and
are probably
it's-
like, "Yeah, that's dad."
And it, unfortunately,
listens.
Unfortunately, it's not isolated to law enforcement. We have lost the ability to talk to people.
Yeah.
Now, I will plow in the field of the police officers on this. I defended the initial stop and some of the assumptions based upon
Yeah,
the
but
actions
after
that
that-
took place.
Yeah.
But here would be my question. So you're pepper spraying this guy. You're using a level of force on him, right, to gain compliance, right? He's what's called passively resisting, not actively resisting.
Which didn't require pepper spray.
Right. What I noticed was they pepper sprayed him and, in effect, incapacitated him in the sense he could no longer see. Could he still fight? Yeah,
Yes.
he could still fight, but he couldn't see, right? So he gets done pepper spraying him and then just kind of opens the door and talks to him for a second before he ever touches
Which
him.
you could have done in the first place.
Right.
Yep.
And so my question was, why did we deploy pepper spray?
Exactly. He was
I
because his ego was bruised because the guy wasn't doing what he told him to do.
yeah,
That was a personal
normally there's
offense to him.
so every police department has what's called a force continuum.
Yep.
Okay? And literally the first level of a force continuum is simply officer's presence. A uniformed officer has some effect on a person
Yep.
to gain compliance, right? And then it's verbal commands, and then it's soft, empty hand, and then it's hard, empty hand, and then it's chemical agents. And sometimes chemical agents can fall in the same line with hard, empty hand. Then you can go to impact weapons, less lethal weapons, and then your handgun. Now, what you have to know is you don't have to hit all those things. Like if I go
You can
to
go from
grab
one
you
to
to do
another.
soft, empty hand and you pull a gun, I don't have to first go to my pepper spray.
Right.
And then you can jump within the continuum, but your force should match what your resistance is.
Exactly.
And
You don't want to pull out a hand grenade when all you really needed was to just kind of say, "Hey,
Right.
come over here." Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, that the guy sat there like that. If they really wanted him out, they could have reached in, unlocked the door, opened it, and used soft, empty hand to escort him wherever they wanted. If they were going to handcuff him to temporarily detain while they investigated it, they
He had both hands out of the window, so it wasn't like
Yeah.
he was trying to reach for anything.
Yeah, it was, as I've said, a lot of these instances are like a slow train wreck.
Yep.
You see it coming. Like you see it coming.
And there's nothing we can really do about that.
Well,
We observe it, we see it, and we go, "That was screwed up."
Now, the worst part to me, all that was screwed up. But the worst part to me was when they popped the back hatch, saw the paper license plate, and said, "Well, you know I could charge you anyway, but I'm not going to. If you want to make a stink about this, I can still charge you." So basically, you're
Yeah.
threatening him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that moment, though, his body language said, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, instead of saying, "Oh, I messed up.
I messed
I
up."
didn't see it through the tinted
Why
window."
can't people
he
say they're
threatens-
sorry?
He
I mean-
threatens him and says, "Don't file a complaint. Don't say anything about this, or I can charge you anyway." And the other thing that aggravates me is in some of these situations, once they figure out they screwed up, they still want to try to charge you with resisting arrest.
I think
What kind of bullshit?
I know, but man, I've been in a situation with my own kids that I've crossed the point of no return. Right? I've already
The bullet
crossed
out the end of the gun. There's no pulling it back.
And now I have a choice of going,
I screwed up.
don't call CPS. I messed up. But instead, I go, and if you do that again,
I'm going to double down on this.
I'm doubling down.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been there.
And that's what this cop did.
Have you?
Yeah.
Have either one of you been there?
Oh,
Please tell me you
yes.
Well, we all have.
Okay.
Probably before the end of the night, I'll do it. So,
it's a human thing, and I think that it's just because
Well, the difference is he did it on camera.
Well, he did it on camera.
yeah.
And
can you imagine if you had a camera on you at work all day long?
That'd be a problem.
we were talking about?
We'd all be fired like tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that has to be addressed as well. So I've got this little list of things called should a cop and can a cop.
Oh, that's good because those are two completely different things.
I'm not going to be like a lawyer and say this is a yes or no question, but I'm going to try. Can a cop pull you over for going 5 miles over the speed limit?
Yes.
Yes.
Can he 1 mile over?
Technically.
Technically, yes.
But I mean, the reason, the radars have to be calibrated and all that. And correct me when I start speaking incorrectly.
Okay.
And from what I understand, they don't do the little minute 1 or 2 miles over because when you calibrate, you look at the calibration of the radar and the calibration of the speedometer in the car. There's some kind of give
Buffer,
or take there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
So what you're talking about is
They don't want to waste
the
time.
radar is actually right. So if it's been calibrated and it says you're going 1 mile per hour over, you're going 1 mile per hour over. The problem is 99.9% of cars don't have a calibrated speedometer.
That's it. Yeah.
So they are usually
gotcha.
plus or minus 5 miles per hour.
Yep.
Most officers don't even stop you unless you're going 10 over.
10 over.
The only exception with that is a school zone.
Okay.
Right.
Good to know. That was really
school zone. They don't issue a sense of humor on that one. They
Ladies
want
and gentlemen,
you to stop.
if you get pulled over for going 5 miles over, the cop was probably trying to reach a quota. If you were going 10 miles over, and then you should just go, look, I'm sorry.
I can explain quotas too
yes.
if we need to do that
yeah,
before it's over.
That was the thought.
But
of like,
staying on that same thing, changing the size of your tires will throw your speedometer
Yes, it
off.
will.
And thus the reason, yes, that nobody stops for 1 mile per hour over.
we'll be right back after these messages. Tell me about the quota now, because I'll forget about it. Because I always think, oh, it's the end of the month. The cops have got to sit out
and
there.
If you get enough of them, you get a toaster oven.
I thought it was a trip to Paris, Texas.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is local government you're talking about.
Your whole team, your whole squad is like, man, come on, guys, we need
I'm
to get
getting the toaster oven this week.
Yeah. All right. So just dispel that for me.
So there are no quotas.
No quotas.
Okay, let me rephrase that. In every department that is not like a 1 or 2 man department where their city is
Where there's a deputy and a sheriff and that's
sink
it.
or swim on a speeding ticket.
Woodsworth, Louisiana.
Okay.
But any
They don't have to get like 50 traffic stops each.
no, but just like any job, like if you worked in a production job, right? Like say y'all built circuit boards, right? Mm-hmm. And this guy every month
For Google, can we say it's for Google?
Yes.
Sure.
I definitely think
Even
that's
though
who you're
Google's
working
a software
for.
company, but
Yes.
They have phones too, though.
There you
for
go.
the
So you're
phones.
building circuit
All right.
boards. And every month, this guy right here produces 500 of them. And every month, you produce 20 of them.
that's a big span. Yeah.
Don't you think you might be in trouble?
Yeah.
Okay, so the same thing comes into play when
So
it
it's
comes.
kind of an unspoken understanding. Look,
Yeah.
Now, are warnings? Let's say, do you guys actually record warnings?
Yes.
Okay.
So
So it
what it
shows if you
really
pull
comes
somebody
down
over.
to, what it really comes down to is activity.
Yep.
So you had asked me before about different roles in the police department, like
Yes.
a patrol officer versus a traffic officer
I meant like
versus.
donut rolls, but that's
Wait,
fine.
you didn't tell me there was going to be donuts here.
Yes.
I'm very fond of
Yeah.
those. So yeah, different roles kind of play into that. I was a motor officer for many years, and motor officers, their job is to write tickets and work wrecks.
Yep.
They don't give a lot of warnings. They do give some, but they don't give a lot of warnings, just like state troopers don't. If all your job is to enforce the traffic law,
You're not going to give a lot of warnings.
you're probably getting a ticket.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, motor officers really, where it comes down to the number of tickets you write, if everybody in your squad averages 15 tickets a day and you write 3 every day, you're not going to be a motor officer
With
very long.
10 warnings or whatever. Yeah.
No, the 10 warnings would get you because at least
Because at
now
least
you
you
made
pull somebody
15
over.
stops.
Yeah.
You made your activity still matched the other people. It's just your enforcement decision.
Exactly.
And the police department doesn't get the
Now look,
ticket
Bob,
money.
we've taken a look at last month's your file here, and you've got to do a better job. Yeah. You're making everybody look bad.
Yeah.
So there's no. It's just I mean, what's on average when you remember doing this? You wanted to get 15. Is it a week or a day? A day. If you're a motor.
That was kind of so. I worked evening shift motor, so we had the evening rush hour that we
Is that an
would.
8-hour shift?
12
hour.
Well, 12.
We were on 8 hours.
8 hour
Okay.
shift. So that's roughly one every 40 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, really, if you're working stationary enforcement in an area, you can. If you're in a big city, you've seen how people drive around here. You can go write your ticket, turn around, write a ticket, turn around, write a ticket, turn around, write a ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can also stop for whatever you want to. Seatbelts, speeding, stop on a railroad crossing.
I got more questions here. Can a cop ask me to get out of my car for any reason at all?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. So
Is it considered something like, because I've been pulled over, and I don't think I've ever been asked to get out of the car.
I've heard people say that when a cop asks them to get out of the car, they said, you can't ask me to get out of my car for a traffic citation. But I've been asked to get out of my car. And I walk,
Isn't that
and
funny?
then we walk
I've
to the
never
back of the
been
car.
asked. I've been
and-
pulled over tons.
Yeah, and then they get mad because I don't answer any questions.
Okay.
So we kind of talked about this before about what's called a Terry frisk.
Yep.
So I think it was Terry versus Ohio. All my cop people watching have been out for a few years, so if it's pretty sure it's Terry versus Ohio.
If he's wrong, post a comment. And,
Yes, I'm sure you'll tear me up in the comments. But a Terry frisk is where you've detained somebody, and a traffic stop is a detention. You're not allowed to just drive off.
Right.
Obviously, you'd go to jail if you did. So anybody that you have lawfully detained, you have the right to conduct a Terry frisk on. In other words, check to see if they have weapons. So not every stop needs to have somebody get out of a car. Usually that something has triggered that. The cop's scared. You made a furtive movements. Have you ever heard the term furtive movements?
Yep.
Okay, so furtive movements can really mean anything, but it gives an articulable reason for an officer to check for weapons or check the
have you
area
been told to get out of the car as a civilian?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It was actually before I became a police officer, but I got stopped in a city between Dallas and Fort Worth. I won't say its name. And the officer made me get out of my car and stand at the back of the car.
Well, you had like cases of beer in the back of course, right?
Yeah.
But you did. So I can't recall I'm not saying it never happened. I've been pulled over a lot, and, since I was 16 years old. I don't recall saying, "I need you to step out of the car."
Yeah. I was a teenager at the time, and he pulled me out of my car, and he checked right around my seat.
This is so leading. Rob, how many times have you been told? So that's
not the only traffic stop I ever had.
This is a race related question, but because one of my questions that I had on here is, let's say you got a guy who's 50 years old, and how many times have they been wrongfully profiled or wrongfully pulled over in their life? But I want you to tell me. When you get pulled over, you've been pulled over for speeding over your lifetime, I'm sure. Lots.
Bunch. Yep.
Would you say half of the times, or less than half?
Probably about 25%.
Okay, 25% of the time. That's good.
The one that kind of the only one that kind of aggravated me, because generally whatever they ask me to do, with the exception of searching my vehicle, I'm going to do. You want me to get out? I'm good. But the only one that kind of aggravated me was there was myself and two young ladies I went to church with. We were on our way to New Orleans for there was a young adult conference, and they pulled us over on I-49. One cop took me to the back of the car. The other one took other young ladies to the front of the car, and asked me the same questions they were asking her. And then he went and asked the other young lady who was in the car the same questions. Mm-hmm. My response to every question was, I don't know. Where are you going? Doesn't matter. When are you going to get there? I don't know. Because it has no consequence on me driving 57 miles an hour in a 45-mile zone or whatever it is. But I'm not answering any questions.
I can tell you exactly what that was, because I've been to a school where we were taught specifically what you're describing. Mm-hmm. So that's called drug interdiction training.
Yep. That's what I figured it was.
Yes. And so that is exactly you could have taken the test based on what you just said, your experience. And that
I was highly offended.
Yeah. That is to a T what's called drug interdiction training. That's what the officers taught to do. But
there's scenarios that would be more appropriate to conduct, opposed to.
I strongly believe it had nothing to do with race. It had something to do with me having Texas plates on the car.
Yes.
Oh.
We were in Louisiana with Texas license
exactly
plates.
Right.
So
the same way, if I had been on the streets and I see Florida plates, I want to look in that car.
Yep. And he asked
drugs.
He asked like 5 times if he could look in the car, and I was like, if you have a warrant, you can look.
Yeah.
Well, what do you have to hide? I said, your mama. And he got pissed.
See, you got more kahunas, but
I don't break the law.
Yeah.
And so when you treat me like I'm a criminal, then I'm gonna be just as offensive to you as I feel you're being to me.
Yeah.
Without breaking the law.
That's the part I think
because it really pisses me off, because I was out there like 35 minutes behind bull crap.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, dude, what I'm not going to do is do the yes, sir, no, sir, sorry, sir bullshit when you're offending me. I'm letting you know you're offending me. And I'm going to say everything I can to offend you without breaking the law.
Yeah.
Because you're pissing me off.
Is being detained, this is the question I had, is being detained for 30 minutes or so until more information is gathered or specialized backup is on the way, fair, legal, or even necessary?
Those are 3 completely different animals.
Yeah, it depends.
That is for sure.
Okay.
Fair, legal, and necessary.
If I open my door and you see and a puff of marijuana smoke comes out, then that's different.
Let's assume that I'm just driving. I'm not drunk. I'm not high. I don't have weapons in the car, and I'm being detained for 30 minutes, being grilled. Is that
what happened to me, where I was out there for 35 minutes, was not fair, was not, in my opinion, legal, and it wasn't necessary. They had no probable cause to even think.
But is that
because I have Texas plates does not give you the right to treat me the way I was treated.
Is that part of what's living in this country?
That's part of my problem is that type of bullshit leeway.
Yeah.
And the treating of law-abiding citizens the way you basically when you pull me over, when he pulled me over, he treated me as though I was a criminal, even though I'm not.
Yeah.
So immediately, I'm already offended, and I'm gonna have
Again, if it would have been like, hey, I apologize to detain you. We're required to blah, blah, blah. I'm sure everything's going to be fine.
He said he pulled me over because the light over my back license plate was out.
Yeah, that's called felony, no license plate light.
Felony.
He was facing me. He was coming in the opposite direction from me.
Yeah.
He hit his lights, made a U-turn, and came behind me. So he hadn't even seen my rear license plate.
No license plate light. I don't think I'm letting out any law enforcement secrets here by saying, and it's called felony no license plate light, is because it's used so often as a stop, and then they find drugs or they find somebody's got a warrant or whatever. Yeah. But I'll tell you. So let me remove the word fair from there, because one thing I tell my own children is life is not fair.
Is true.
So I'm going to take fair out of there.
That's just not fair.
That's
not fair.
So that's why I immediately became that asshole.
Yeah. What I would replace that with is it good judgment? Is it legal, or is it necessary? So.
Because number 3 is can a cop determine if someone has broken a law or is a criminal just by looking at them? Skin color, clothes, body language.
Absolutely,
you can't determine that, but some cops think they can.
Well,
it's like, I've been around a time or two, and I can tell this guy he did something wrong.
Did you see the way he looked at me? He turned his head when I looked at him.
Okay, I know it's leading, and it's so funny, Greg, being here. I've never done this before because I consider you a friend, but you've been you're a cop, and a lot of my questions are slanted towards cops because it's perception. I feel like I'm being a reflection, not the guy who's going, I hate all cops. I'm like, in my lifetime, I hear people saying this, and I see on TV, and this is what picture is being painted.
Well, the picture is being painted because it actually happens. I'm not saying that it's all cops.
Yeah, no, don't mean to say
but
picture
the picture
that
is painted because it actually happens.
There's some reality in that, and there's some opportunity for dishonesty going on out there. But based on what you're saying, what?
So you've heard the saying, to a hammer, everything is a nail.
Yep.
So unfortunately, being a police officer, and especially being a police officer for a long period of time, you see a very dark side of the world.
You get jaded.
You do. You get jaded, and a lot of your preconceived notions are often true. Mm-hmm. There are some behaviors and some actions that if you see them, you know what that means. And that's not necessarily based on race or sex or anything like that. It's based upon the fact that every time I've seen this happens.
Past situations can constitute future repercussions, but you have to go, I got to treat everything as unique.
Right. So this is not a defense in any way to say that it's okay for officers to take that jadedness or stuff like that and use it against innocent people. But I think what I would say is there's a big problem in law enforcement where, first of all, you're not really supposed to show any weakness. So if you've been involved in critical incidents and you've been involved in things, if you go and seek counseling or anything like that, they'll rubber gun you. In other words, you're going to be riding a desk and blah, blah, blah. So you just stuff it down, you stuff it down, you stuff it down, you stuff it down. And it doesn't matter if you're a cop, a lawyer, or a lawn guy. It doesn't matter. If you keep stuffing stuff down, eventually it comes out.
Exactly.
And so that's a problem. And that's one of the things I think that needs to be fixed in law enforcement.
Counseling should be required rather than
it's a stigma. It's a stigma now.
When you deal with what you deal with, it's going to affect you if you're a human being.
Yes, it is a stigma. And also, we get law enforcement, it's very easy to get in this echo chamber of nothing but police officers. Yeah. You wind up not having friends outside of law enforcement, and you lose perspective. And it's because you work 10 and 12-hour shifts, and then you get a late call, and then you're there 14, 16 hours, and then, oh, by the way, you got court in the morning, then you're at court, and you got to go to your off-duty job. And that becomes when people say, it's not a job, it's a way of life, a lot of people think that's stupid. It's a way of life because it dominates your life.
Right.
Like, you have no time for your family. You have no time for your friends. There is a lot that needs to be fixed in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these racial tension things that happen, I cannot see into the heart and minds of men.
Mm-hmm.
I can see where things went wrong. I try very hard to be open-minded and look at it from both sides of the aisle. I tried to do that in police work for as long as I could. And I think I treated most people that I came in contact with fairly and respectfully. But there is a big problem in law enforcement with a lack of clear leadership.
Yeah.
Not hiring the right people for the job, and not training and protecting these people's mental health.
Yep.
Because I'm here to tell you, just like there's people on the street with mental health problems, and mental health problems is a big crisis in this country. If you think law enforcement is immune to it, they're not.
They see the worst part of people's lives, and people on the worst days of their lives. And for you to be a human being and see that and have to deal with that on a daily and it not affect you, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question is who would want to be a cop nowadays? I mean, who would go, I would. Either because they're naive, they think that they're not, they have no idea of what they're about to get themselves into, so they've got a rose-colored perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's, I would say that some people would say, the kind of cops that are either bullies or have been bullied, and this is their chance to become a cop to get revenge or whatever. Just go with me on this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Narcissists, people who want to be looked up to or feel the need to be respected.
Yeah.
Vigilantes that use the badge power to support their own bias or justice.
Okay.
The equalizer. This is the guy who helps law-abiding citizens to feel
really
safe
wants to try to make a change
by catching the bad guys
Yep.
within the law. I mean, they're by the book, right? Then you get the caring protectors and mentors that want to be seen as the good cop by talking to kids and settling family disputes. Then I've got the uneducated. They're not college material. That's me. So I wasn't college material. Not that I'm stupid. I just wasn't college material. So get off my back. They're not great with grammar and spelling. Hello, that's me. I spell scissors, Sizzors. Okay, but they find the job to be respectable, right? This is their opportunity to do good. And guess what? People like to brag. My brother's a cop. My husband is a cop. Oh, really? God, that's very respectable. And that's, to me, a desire that I could see a non-college person wanting to get into the police force. And then I've got this thing called testosterone gang. And these are the people who thrive in sarcastic put-downs. You've seen them on the movies. They're not very warm and affectionate. They can't say, hey, Jim, I really wanted to thank you for covering me the other day. They can't say that. I think of high school jocks. This is kind of, it's just this kind of clique. I won't say gang, it's a clique that they feel that they're a part of. And they can't get that in a corporate environment. They can't get that in a retail environment. And this is the way that they can feel like they belong in a group of people. There's, I'm sure, other reasons why people would want to become a cop. How old were you when you decided you wanted to be in the police field?
I was in my early teens.
Early teens?
My father and both my grandfathers had been in the Army.
Okay.
And I looked at the Army going into that, but there was not a lot going on in the world at that time, and I would have been sitting on a base somewhere.
But you want it sounds like you're saying I wanted to contribute. I wanted to do my part.
Right. And so I had a couple of friends that were already in law enforcement. I did some ride-alongs with them. And I thought, I guess this is more my speed. Yeah. And I don't have to go to a foreign country to do it. I could serve here. I think your list of people is pretty good. I think there are the bullies or those who have been bullied. And so I think more than the bullies, I think it's people who have been bullied and then look.
They call them the small man syndrome.
Yes.
You know.
So back when, remember I started in the late 80s, back when you carried wheel guns, right? Like revolvers.
Yeah.
So you could tell a lot about a person's personality by the length of the barrel of their gun.
Yep.
So the bigger the officer, he would carry like a 4-inch barrel gun, which is standard issue. Mm-hmm. And the smaller the officer got, the bigger the gun got.
Yep.
I kid you not. There was one officer that he had to sit sideways in his car because I'm pretty sure he had an 8-inch barrel gun and he was about
5'3", 5'6".
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's just a compensation thing. Is it subconsciously, like, because they buy the big trucks that they have to get in and they're up there. And
I worked with a partner. I'm 6'5", and he was a little bitty guy. And we used to go, almost every call we went on, he would try to talk himself into a fight.
Yeah.
And guess who had to get him out of the fight?
You.
And I used to get in the car and just scream at him. That was a marriage I never asked for. I'll tell you that right there. And I had him for like 2 years. But the one thing I want to say.
Yeah, because the list, I was waiting to get kind of going.
I think most people start at the equalizer and kind of go down. I think the testosterone gang is actually, that makes it sound like a bad thing. But
right, that's true. But I think there's also.
But I don't think it. I think it is
camaraderie.
Camaraderie.
Yeah.
Brotherhood,
and the nasty and gross jokes like that. Yeah, like that permeates law enforcement. But I think that's kind of a coping.
The military
I think it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah. Interesting.
I think they get a sick, twisted sense of humor as a coping mechanism to laugh at things you probably shouldn't because they see so much crap.
They see so much stuff.
But the one thing I did want to kind of point to where it says uneducated. So most departments now require at least an associate's degree. A lot of them require a bachelor's degree. And if you're going to promote up to lieutenant and stuff like that, like they may have master's degrees and stuff like
today, in this building say, I mean, all you need is a high school diploma to become a cop.
Yeah, that's not true.
So
it depends on departments.
Okay.
Also, even let's say that all you have is a high school diploma, you're going to have to, when it says you can't spell and grammar and all that kind of stuff.
That's so me.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, because I'm that guy.
Well, you won't be able to stay that way long because here's the deal.
Reports.
So when you go to the academy and you're a rookie, one of the things you're gonna get a book that's this thick and it's called the Code of Criminal Procedure. Okay, and then you get one just as thick that's called the Penal Code, the Transportation Code, the Health and Safety Code, the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Code, and they're all that thick, right? And you're going to have to learn those things, and not just learn them enough to pass a test, but learn them enough that you know them out there on the street
and a lot
when you don't have the book right there with you.
Right.
Yeah.
And you, although you're not in any way an attorney, you're interpreting this law and then enforcing it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So to say uneducated, I think, is a little
That's
bit...
traditional education. Like, you go to college.
They were uneducated before they became a police officer.
Yes.
Yeah.
But once they go through the academy, that's an experience.
I will agree
Do
with
you have
that.
to take English? If you got out of high school, I want to be a cop. Do you have to take English and science, history?
Just about every department requires you to have X number of college hours.
Yeah, college hours. Which the basics that my kids are going through. You have to go through some basics.
Probably like 60, I think, is the minimum.
Okay, so it's a continuing education,
and it continues the entire time. So when you graduate the police academy, you graduate with what's called a basic peace officer certification. Then through years of service and continued training, you get intermediate. More years, more education, you get advanced, you get all the way up to master's. And some of it is like to get your master's peace officer. If you have no college whatsoever, it would take you 20 years, and I can't remember how many training hours it is. But if you go to college, then that starts cutting years off of it. So there's incentive to continue your education.
is a minimum.
Okay, so it's a continuing education.
And it continues the entire time. So when you graduate the police academy, you graduate with what's called a basic peace officer certification. Then through years of service and continued training, you get intermediate, more years, more education, you get advanced, you get all the way up to master's. And some of it is like to get your master's peace officer. If you have no college whatsoever, it would take you 20 years, and I can't remember how many training hours it is. But if you go to college, then that starts cutting years off of it. So there's incentive to continue your education.
And in some municipalities, and I don't know if this is true in Dallas, but I do know, a buddy of mine was in New Jersey, that if you're a cop, let's say in Dallas, that you can go to like one of the community colleges, either at half tuition or free. Like I said, I'm not saying Dallas does that, but I'm saying there are some municipalities that actually do that with their community colleges.
Okay. Okay. So that's but aside from the discrepancy on the education, I mean, is that sound about right? You know,
I think that is your police department right there with the majority starting at equalizer and down. That is the majority of your department. Above it, there are some of those people in the department.
Now, the one that you kind of left off would encompass people like when I first got out of the Army. I was infantry. I was a sniper. The only thing I knew how to do was shoot.
Right. Those are SWAT guys.
Yeah. So, I had college hours and so forth, but I came out and I looked around. And I said, yeah, maybe I'll be a cop. I interviewed with a local police department, took the test. The lieutenant that I was dealing with through the recruitment process said I'd scored the highest score they'd had in 10 years on the test. Did the physical agility test. It was fine. But
at that time, you were more in shape.
We're really gonna bring that up.
We're old, dude.
It's the camera. It adds 10 pounds.
I'm envisioning you like being, you're like tip top shape because you're right out of the military.
I actually was. I was like 205.
Yeah.
I'm
just messing with you, of course.
Oh, I know. Where I messed up was I personally don't think I messed up, but where they disqualified me was during the oral interviews. I was asked a question: if you get this job, I mean, they had a bunch of other questions, situational questions. If this happened and that happened, would you shoot this person or would you do that or do that? But the question that I was told disqualified me was, they said, if you took this job and we had a crystal ball and we could somehow say that 365 days from now, exactly on the day that you started, that you would die, would you still take the job? And I said, yes. And they frowned and they looked at each other, they started writing, and then they asked again, do you understand the question? I mean, if you don't take the job, you can live, but what you're saying in 365 days, you die. And I was like, I have no issue with that. And this female lieutenant, she stopped writing. She said, I have to ask, why would you take the job? I said, as it stands, no man knows the day or the hour. I could walk out of here and have a heart attack, get hit by a bus. I could die tomorrow. But you're telling me I got 364 good days to do what I need to do to try to make this world a better place? I'm good with that. Wow. But I still got disqualified.
You were honest.
Because I wasn't, in their mind, I wasn't afraid of death.
And that might be something that, hey, if he's not afraid of death, then he might be
reckless.
Yeah.
That's the way it was explained to me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oral review boards are so subjective.
Yep.
What one group of people would think is a great answer, the next group of people may think, I wouldn't like that.
Just think if you would have gotten, you almost became a cop, Rob. I mean, if they would have said, you're great, top score, you probably could have done some good things.
I'm a nerd. I do well at tests.
See? And so that's what your security company, that kind of fulfills a little level of that too, of, doing, trying to keep people safe.
It's a side hustle.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Should a cop explain why they need to ask you certain questions?
If they can.
Right.
Why wouldn't they be able to?
Because things can go from 0 to 100 in a second. if they're being cooperative, you should take the time to explain what's going on, assure them, explain why you need them to do what they need to do, especially today. Look, we're all human, and times change, mentalities change, things change. Obviously, if this was 1970 and a cop said jump, you jump, but we live in a society where not just law enforcement, but just millennials nowadays, if you're like, I need you to do this. Why?
Yeah.
Yep.
What
People are
benefit is
questioning
that?
things
Yeah.
more.
And so we kind of have to recognize that. We actually talked about that in the police department as, the generations changed within the department. We're no longer a department of all military people,
Right.
that,
Just follow
why
orders.
did you do that? Well, the sergeant said so.
That's
Yep.
right. Chain of command.
Yep.
Now it's, if the sergeant says you need to do XYZ, they're like, okay, why?
For those of y'all out there, thanks for spending the time with us today, and y'all be kind to one another, would you?
That'd be great.